Thank you. Good day, everyone. It's another moment. Our webinar is here again. This is day 2 of our webinar. Yesterday was day 1, where we started on the essentials of building a brand in digital age. So this coming to us from Jofia Academy, where we do tutorial for Nigerian exams covering JAMB, WAEC, NECO, GCE, as well as foreign exams that takes us through IELTS, TOEFL, GMAT, GRE, and many more, including computer courses, basic computer courses, as well as desktop publishing, graphics. We cover UI, UX, web development courses, front end and back end. So this evening we'll be taking one of our courses, digital marketing, which we started yesterday. Web development courses, front end and back end. So we also take adult education classes, as well as online registration for major programs like NYSC registration. So we are all welcome this evening for another informative section. Encourage everyone to mute as we hook up for today's section. This program comes the last weekend of every month, the last Friday and the last Saturday of every month, 4 p.m., 1 hour. We steer ourselves up to tech courses that helps us to get ready for the digital world. It inspires us and for us to get ourselves, take a decision whether to go online course, which we can do online courses as well as physical sections. So tonight I make welcome our facilitator, who is going to anchor this meeting. It's a monthly program. Thank you for joining, and sit tight, get your books ready, get your systems ready, get your phones ready for this informative section. And we'll not just be learning, we should be applying. Thank you for joining. God bless you. I make welcome Mr. Innocent as he takes off this evening section. God bless you, Mr. Innocent.
Thank you very much, Ma. All right, guys, welcome to day 2 of our course on building a strong brand in a digital economy. Yesterday, we covered the foundations on how to go about building a brand. Today, we are going to take a look at the strategy that you can employ while trying to do that. So basically, a quick lowdown of some of the things we spoke about yesterday. First of all, we defined what a brand is, and then we talk about what is a brand in the digital era. After that, we talked about the core elements of a strong brand, and then we took some Q&As. So yesterday, we defined branding as the process of creating a unique identity, to be an image or an experience for a business, product, or a service in the minds of consumers. That's what we define branding to be. And then we walked over some of the important things we ought to know. We said brands are beyond logo, and we said a strong brand should always have an identity, it should have perception, should also have promise and experience. And then we also touched a little bit on visual identity for a brand, which we talked about logo marks, or how your brand should be represented in the visual areas. Today, however, we're going to be switching a little bit from the foundations, and we're going to be going more into some of the strategies that you can employ in order to make your brand stand out, especially in the digital economy. First off today, we'll be starting with content as the heart of a digital brand. Content as the heart of a digital brand. Now, with digital brand strategy, what do we mean when we talk about content? By the way, digital brand strategy is a long-term plan that helps you to define how a brand uses digital platforms, tools, and content to connect to its audiences. So basically, it helps the brand to build trust, as well as stand out in the online marketplace. That is what it means to employ a digital brand strategy. When we talk about using online tools or digital platforms, we're talking about you understanding your audience. I spoke about audiences just a little yesterday. We talked about understanding your audience, understanding who they are. We are also talking about where they spend their time online, as well as what they value once they are online. So when we talk about who they are, we are trying to say, are your target audience, are they males? Are they females? What age range? Where are they located physically? You know, because your business will be in Lagos, but your target audience, where are they? Are they in Abuja? These are the things we consider when we talk about who your audience is or who they are. We also talk about where they spend time. Now that you've identified that your audience are probably people ranging from the age 22 and 35, where do they spend their time online? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? You need to know where they are. Now you have to know what they value. For example, people within that age range, what do you think that matters to them the most? You have to identify it and how that interest relates to your brand. You have to know all of that as well. And then this helps you to now choose the digital channel to get in touch with them, because your audience can't be, or your target audience cannot be on LinkedIn while you're focusing your brand or building your brand around Facebook. It doesn't work that way. All right. So this information will help you to now shape the digital experience that you create. In terms of content, storytelling in the digital economy is at the core of brand positioning, brand building, or just branding in general. Storytelling. And this is why you see sometimes content creators or your favorite online influencers, there's something about the kind of content they create that attracts you to them. We are saying that your brand should also do exactly the same. Your brand should do exactly the same. So in the digital age, content is the lifeline of branding. It's how brands communicate their values, share their personality, as well as build emotional connection with their audiences. Unlike traditional branding, which we saw yesterday, ads that only broadcast messages, that's what traditional branding is. Digital content, on the other hand, allows brands to tell stories, to start conversations, as well as create communities of people who are dedicated to what that brand stands for or what the brand represents. This is what we mean by digital storytelling. So if they ask you, we're talking about branding, what has storytelling got to do with branding? Well, storytelling and branding go hand in hand because storytelling matters. Storytelling helps to humanize your brand. Stories make brands relatable and memorable. Whenever it comes to you picking out a brand to work with or a brand to, buy from, sometimes it's about the value you've seen being communicated through their marketing or what the brand represents or stands for in general that attracts you to that brand. The way that brand was able to get their ideas or get their standpoint on certain, cultural activity across to you is through how they tell their stories. Another thing about storytelling is it differentiates a brand from its competitor. All right, unique stories stand out in crowded markets, and this is why you should adopt storytelling whenever you're trying to tell a story about your brand. Storytelling also helps drive engagement. Content creates or encourages audience to like, audience to share, as well as comment and also start discussions. So depending on the kind of story you're telling, it can help start discussions. It can help create a buzz around your content. And because that content is generating buzz, it also generates buzz around your brand. All right. So when we are telling stories online, we don't just tell a linear story because the way we tell stories, we are telling it through content, right? So that doesn't mean that you have to focus on just a certain type of content all the time or certain type of storytelling all the time. We all know what it means when you have this good, promising creator online to like his or her, content. Not only all of a sudden you discover that after 6 months, the person is still creating the same kind of content. You get tired of them, right? The same way, you don't want to be predictable in the way you tell your stories. This is what I mean when I say storytelling is not linear. You have to dip in, be creative about how you tell your stories. Let's see the different forms of storytelling in the digital world. On the screen, we have different ways you can convey your story in the digital world. Social media posts is top on the list. By the way, anything you put on social media is considered a social media post. So that can be image, that can be a video, that can be just another text. These are considered social media posts. So through social media posts, you can tell your story. Another way of telling stories is through blogs and articles. Now, blog and articles only live on mostly websites or sometimes third-party platforms. Most people underestimate the power of websites, not knowing that the website is like the midpoint for everything you do online. The website is where you assemble all the things you do online. Most of the time, it doesn't matter how your brand is represented online. It doesn't matter how many platforms your brand is present on. Sometimes what you want to do, or for the most part, what you want to do is to drive people from the different platforms you are on to your website. Because on your website, you're not limited to the kind of stories you can tell. You're not limited to a certain kind of a certain kind of content you can create or the amount of text you're allowed to post. Your website is your #1 real estate. So blogs and articles work there. Posting your products or your services in more detail to get people to understand and connect with it is better off on your website. And that's why I said your website should be the midpoint for all your branding efforts. Another thing we can also look at is influencer collaborations. Now, in digital marketing, this is usually called influencer marketing. If you've seen maybe your favorite content creator or your favorite person online, trying to promote a product, it could be clothes, it could be body cream, it could be anything online. That is what we call influencer collaboration. And that we also promote your brand is through influencer collaboration. All right, because with influencer collaboration, you are trying to look for an influencer or somebody with an engaged audience that suits your brand. And then you go to that person, strike a deal to promote that business you are building. And in turn, that person gives you part of his or her audience. That is what we call influencer collaboration. Then we use videos and reels. If pictures can tell, or if pictures can contain 1,000 words, videos can contain probably billions. All right. So videos and reels. This is for, by the way, YouTube and Instagram. This is for Instagram and Facebook. On YouTube, it's called Shorts. Short videos that helps people connect with your brand using videos, right? Is very, very effective. We have to look for a way of getting this message across to your audience in a way that is relatable, because everything I try to do here is try to create content in a way that resonates with our audience, instead of just telling stories without having a plan. We are using some kind of strategy here. So how can all of this help us? Example is, let's take Coca-Cola as an example. Coca-Cola creates digital campaigns most of the time around joy, sharing, and togetherness. All right. Every time you see a Coca-Cola advertisement, it's all about a way of sharing joyful people in the ads or creating a sense of togetherness. That's how they present themselves online. And every single time they go out to market, this is the same message they carry. It doesn't matter if they are doing it in print, it doesn't matter if they are doing it on television, it doesn't matter if they're doing it on social media. The brand strategy is the same across the board. And this is something we are encouraged to embrace. So in digital economy, content is not just about marketing. It is branding itself. Every blog post, every video, every tweet, every email contributes to your brand story. When done authentically and consistently, storytelling turns audiences into loyal communities. And this is how you see brands become very, very powerful, that they have people who are willing to defend them if they are being misrepresented in the media. One thing I pointed out, I said authentic storytelling as well as consistency. So if you are building a brand where you post once in a blue moon, that is not consistency. If you are the kind of brand that looks at somebody else's activities online and you want to adopt that activity, that same activity without adding any kind of originality to that activity or to that way of presenting your brand, then you are just doing copy and paste. There is no way the authenticity can be derived from that kind of marketing or branding effort. So, like I said, different ways of telling stories in a digital economy is through social media posts. This is kind of generic. It's through using blogs and articles. It's through influencer collaboration, as well as videos and reels. Now, once this content has been created, we have to also distribute the content. While you spend a lot of time developing content. Don't also forget developing strategies of how you want that content to be distributed. In the digital economy, creating valuable content is only half of the job. Getting it seen, getting it to be shared, and also acted on. When I talk about acted on, I mean in terms of engagement, people liking it, people commenting on it, is the other half. This is where content distribution now comes into the mix. So let's take a closer look at content distribution. Content distribution or effective content distribution ensures your brand or your brand message reaches the right audience through owned and paid channels. I'll explain this better. I said effective distribution ensures your brand message reaches the right audience through owned and or paid channels. These three categories work best when combined in an integrated approach instead of doing them individually. Let's understand what we mean by that. First off, we have owned. What does owned mean? Owned media is any content or platform that you fully control. Any kind of content or platform that is 100% under your control. Example, your website. Another example is your email newsletters, your social media profiles. If you have a mobile app as a brand, that's another owned media. Branded communities and forums like your WhatsApp group, your Discord servers, and all of that. This is what we mean by owned media, the one that you own yourself. The advantage of owned media is you have full control of how you want your message to be perceived and how you want to brand the content being posted on those platforms. It is also cost effective in the long run. And then it also builds direct relationship with your audience. All right, these are the advantages of owned media. Anything that has advantages also comes with some kind of disadvantages. All right, so the limitations for having or dealing with owned media is that it requires consistent content creation. And if you're like me, thinking of content sometimes can become difficult. The only way you get around this limitation is sometimes if you know you don't have it in you to create original content ideas all the time, you can always outsource parts of the content that you publish on your brand, social media handles, or online platforms. Another one with owned media is growth may be slower compared to paid media. We come to paid media, but the growth of your own media may be a little bit slower. Now, if you continue with your owned media over a long period of time, it becomes better. And sometimes you discover that with your own media, investing in your own media is going to be the best investment you will do. Because now you've built a community where people don't have to go through social media to get to you, but can go directly to you. That is what the advantage in the long run is for owned media. Aside owned media, we also have earned media. Earned media is publicity gained organically when others talk about your brand. This is like when other people recommend your brand to people close to them. This is what we call earned. All right. An example would be, let's say, after this webinar, somebody comes to you and the person is is talking about maybe starting a brand. You can, for example, say, I attended a webinar last week, for example, and I think I will just talk to that person. I think the person have an idea on how we should go about this branding. That is you recommending me or Jofia Academy to that person that you know. In that case, that is earned media, because a third party, either a platform or an individual, is now suggesting me to others. And the way they do this is through things like reviews, recommendation, or word of mouth, talking to somebody else about you. So publicity gained organically when others talk about your brand is what is called earned media. So when you create your content, the content can be distributed on your own media or earned media. Examples of earned media include media coverage and press mentions. Somebody, just tweeting about your brand. Somebody recommending you to somebody else in their DMs is earned. Posts you make online, or the content you share, you post online that is shared to other people, is also considered earned media. And of course, I made mention of word of mouth. Talking to somebody else about your brand is also earned media. You also have advantages to earned media. Now, when people recommend you to others, what that communicates is credible and trustworthiness. It just communicates credibility and trustworthiness, because audiences tend to trust their peers or their friends more than they do ads. If I'm looking at an ad, I'm skeptical about all that's being said. But if a friend tells me, oh, last week I bought A and B from this brand, and it's quite good, I would take that word from a friend over whatever I see on the ad. And this is why yesterday I spoke about promise, making an implicit or explicit promise. And it's not just about making these promises, but also living up to the promises that you've made. Another advantage of earned media is it can go viral, giving exponential reach to your brand. There are people that try as much as they can to go viral online. One thing about going viral online is usually it's not something that is planned. When you are planning the content, you don't know if it will go viral. Sometimes the content you least expect is the one that goes viral. So recommendations can go viral as well. So that's another advantage. And because you are gaining earned media, it strengthens your brand authority as well as authenticity. It changes the way people perceive your brand online. That's another advantage. Now, with advantages come disadvantages. So some of the limitations would be that there is no direct control over the message being put out there. I don't know if somebody has walked into your company or somebody met you and the person said, I learned you guys do this. And you're like, oh, no, we don't. All right, that's definitely a disadvantage, because you don't have control over how people will paint your brand online. By recommending you to others, they may include a thing or two that does not represent your brand to the T. And that can be a problem. That is a limitation. Then, it is also harder to predict or scale consistently, because you don't have control over what people have or the notion people have concerning your brand. It's very difficult to predict the outcome. Now, we talked about recommendation in the positive light. There's also the negative light. If you've seen where people write reviews on products or on brand activities online, you discover that sometimes the reviews you see there will be very, very poor. Some are good, some are bad. So we don't have control over some of these things, and we can't predict what the outcome will be. Finally, we have the paid media. Paid media is just promotional content that is placed through paid advertisement. And this is what most people tend to do from the beginning of building their brand. They create the brand, represent it online by creating different handles and touch points to their for their customers or their potential customers. And then they go into paid media, paying platforms to advertise their businesses, to advertise their services. But paid media comes at a cost. And because of this, some brands could not afford from the beginning. All right. So for paid media, examples include search advertisements. If you go to YouTube today and you look for probably real estate companies, chances are the first couple of results you're going to get on Google will not be free. Some of those ones will be sponsored search. This is what we call search ads. We also have social media ads like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of that. They are also social media ads, which are also considered paid content, paid media. We have display ads as well as retargeting campaigns. We have sponsored content as well as video ads on YouTube or streaming platforms like we've seen, we've all experienced. Advantage of using paid media is you get quick results. You get very quick results. And you also have the opportunity to target your potential customers directly. It is also useful for testing campaigns as well as driving conversations as well. I mentioned some of this disadvantage that says it requires some kind of budget. And sometimes the budget is not something you do one time. This is one of the problems people have with paid media. Sometimes you say, can we run an ad for just 3 days? That is not the right way of adopting paid media whenever you are trying to put your brand out there. It is something that requires an ongoing budget. So every single month you should have a budget on the amount you want to spend on paid media. Probably to an extent where your brand has gotten enough recognition that you don't have to solely rely on those advertisements to be able to get or to be able to make sales. All right. So it requires ongoing budget. Another downside is the effectiveness of your paid media is dependent on targeting and creative quality. So if you're not creative enough with the way you create your video or the way you create your flyer, which you intend to use for the marketing, for example, you're not going to get results. Another one is the content itself, what people will read on that content. If it is not done in a creative way, or if it is not effective, you are not going to get results. And this is one of the reasons why most people post ads online, and after running it for a couple of days, they make no sales. After putting it out for a couple of days, there is no feedback. All right. This is as a result of the fact that whatever you put out there has no effectiveness or it is not creative enough. Now, to maximize the impact of content distribution, brand must blend owned, earned, and paid media into one unified strategy. This is often called the PESO model, meaning paid, earned, shared, and owned. All right. Here's a quick example of how you can do all of this together. If you publish a blog post on your website, that is considered owned. You can share that same blog post on social media where your followers can repost it. This becomes earned. All right. You can now boost that same post in order to reach, let's say, a broader audience on Facebook using Facebook ad campaign. This becomes earned. Sorry, this becomes paid. So like I said, owned and paid have to be blended together as a unified strategy in order for you to get the best out of your content distribution. Now, at this point, I'd like us to quickly hear a thing or two from Ms. Sophia before we wind down on the rest of what we have.
Thank you, Mr. Innocent.
Now, this points are not possible to hear a thing or two from Sophia before we wind down.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Innocent. Thank you so much for this informative section. I believe many of us that joined us from the beginning would have been having enough of it all to amend some kind of strategies that we've been applying in our social media engagements. This program basically coming from Jofia Academy, where we do tutorials for Nigerian exams, covering JAMB, WAEC, ECE, NECO, foreign exams, including IELTS, TOEFL, SAT, GMAT, GRE, as well as computer courses where we take from basic computer to desktop, publishing, graphics, as well as front end, back end, UI, UX, app development courses, including data analysis, cybersecurity, ethical hacking. You are free to learn either physically or online. Any plan is available. We can work with your schedule wherever you are, in any location. You can go through any of these courses, physically or online. We also help candidates for registration programs, like registering for NYSC registration, Open University registration exams, so many online registration programs. We as well help candidates to register those programs. And we also take students for adult education. Many have left school for quite a while and couldn't get back to regular school. You are free to join us as well. This is a major programs to run. We run all through the year. This program is a monthly program where we run a webinar to spice our clients from far and near of this environment. So wherever you are, you are all welcome in Jofia Academy webinar section that holds every month. The last Friday and the last Saturday of the month, we stir ourselves up, taking some responsibility to motivate ourselves to learn. All of these programs a year that is so difficult, we can truly learn them. We spice each day, each month with one of the top courses we take, just to bring it down to our level of understanding. You are free to ask questions, send mails, and if you did not register for this program, you can also send us email. Send your email address so that we can also follow you up with all the informative things that come up, and also remind you each time we have this program. Thank you so much for joining. Like we know, this is day 2 of this program, the last for this September edition. We'll be joining again for October edition. Sit tight as we round up for today, as I welcome Mr. Innocent to continue for this section. Thank you, Mr. Innocent. Welcome back.
Okay, thank you so much. Continue from here. Please, before I proceed, I want to quickly remind us, if you have any question whatsoever on some of the things I've said in the past that you don't understand or you want me to clarify, quickly leave it in the chat, and once I'm done, I'll quickly take those questions before we wind down. Okay, now I want us to focus on building digital trust. Digital trust. In the digital economy, trust is like a currency. Customers interact with brands online before ever meeting them in person, which means their loyalty to your brand depends on how safe, reliable, and consistent those digital interactions feel. At the same time, the customer experience has become the defining factor that separates a strong brand from the rest. Let me recap all I've just said. If you have a brand and it's online, people interact with your brand without interacting with you in person. So before they meet you in person, they first of all see your logo, see your flyer, see the name of your brand. So trust is key to maintaining that relationship. It looks like every single time I keep going back to saying, this is not where we make empty promises. It doesn't matter how long your brand has been around. If your brand can't be trusted to deliver on its promises, then there's a problem. And the result of that is people will not want to engage or interact with your brand. Because all of this is what drives consumer behavior. The kind of customer experience your target audience feel from your brand depends on their loyalty to your brand. So what is digital trust? Digital trust is the confidence customers have in a brand's ability to protect their data, deliver on promises, and act with transparency online. I just mentioned protect their data. You may be saying, well, my kind of business does not require customers to, give me their personal information. That's what you think. But if you have a website, for example, customers register on your platform, customers order products from your platform. What happens when you have to ship that product to them? Well, you'd have to ask for their email address, you'd have to ask for their home address, you'd have to ask for their phone number. So what is that information you are collecting used for? How will you store those information? That is what we talked about. That's the reason why I said their data. All of that is considered data. Apart from their personal information, you also make promises, on the content you've written on your website, or the content you keep emphasizing on every time you're marketing to them on social media or whatever platform it is that you market on. Those promises you are making, are you delivering on them? And then, are you transparent with the way you go about your business? What I mean by that is, when you come up with the total a customer has to pay, this is just an example, by the way. When you come up with the total a customer has to pay and the product is delivered to the customer, is your dispatch Friday asking them for additional 2,000 naira that they know nothing about how that additional cost came about? It's part of the transparency we are talking about. So every time you are dealing with people online as a brand, you don't know them. You have to definitely build trust by delivering on the promises you make, being transparent with them, as well as making sure that whatever information they share with you is protected. Transparency in this case is just clear communication about your policies, about your pricing, and about how the data they share with you will be used. Because everybody online wants to feel secure dealing with your brand. Security is, in this case, protecting customer information as well as the transactions you do with them. And I talked about consistency earlier. Consistency is all about delivering the same level of quality across all your digital touchpoints. Facebook, Instagram, you name it. In the digital economy, the brand or a strong brand isn't just about being seen. Oh, I have a Facebook page. That's not all. It's about being trusted and delivering exceptional experiences every single time you are called in. So your trust and the customer experience is going to give you long-term loyalty from those same customers. Here, I want to talk about social proof. Social proof. I don't know if you've gone to maybe any online vendor on Instagram or any of the platforms, and you see them sharing maybe a screenshot of maybe a happy customer, thanking them for delivering on their service. This is what we call social proof. All right. In the digital economy, customers don't just trust what a brand says. They trust what other people say about the brand. This is what we call social proof. And it plays a critical role in shaping the brand credibility, the brand's reputation, and the customer's decisions. Because depending on how well your customer is being talked about, that will definitely influence how people perceive your brand. So I'm just going to share a couple of things you put in mind when you are building your brand online. One, reviews. Reviews. Reviews are feedback left by customers after using a product or a service. They can appear on things like your e-commerce platform, Google, or maybe some kind of yellow pages. Ads. For example, on the social media online, reviews act like word of mouth. All right, reviews act like your regular word of mouth. You know how somebody comes to meet you in person and you're telling them about his particular brand. This is what reviews do online. So as a brand, every single time you encounter a customer and the customer has probably given you some kind of feedback on how well they are satisfied with your service, with your product, what you do is kindly ask them for a quick review, either your social media or on your website. That's important, very, very important. So, customer feedback shared on internet is like the regular word of mouth in a digital form. Positive reviews boost credibility. Negative ones can harm the trust the customers have if not handled well. An example is, if a 4.8 star rating on Amazon, let's say you see a 4 star rating on an Amazon product you intend to purchase. This 4 star rating, let's say from 200 people, will convince you about the quality of that product compared to whatever description the person selling that product to write on that product. This is important. This is important. A 4.5 star rating on Amazon often convinces buyer more than the product description itself. So where is that 4.5 or 4.8 star rating coming from? It is left behind by customers that have bought that product, that have used the product, and are satisfied with the quality of that product. Now, I'm talking about product here. This can also mean services that you render. So let's try to make use of reviews. Another one is testimonials. Testimonials are usually left alongside reviews, although testimonials on the website are represented a little bit differently from how reviews will be represented. Testimonials are curated statements from satisfied customers, often featured on a company's website, social media, or marketing campaigns. Direct endorsements from satisfied customers is what testimonials are. So these usually are featured on websites, landing pages, marketing materials, and they help your customers or potential customers move towards taking action. When I talk about taking action, I simply mean either buying from you or trying to engage with you, because these are words, kind words left behind by people that have interfaced with your business. This is how, for example, a fitness coach can showcase his business. So a fitness coach can, let's say, have a client make a video for him that he's going to eventually put on the website, telling them how they're able to probably get the gains they've paid for in a very short period of time. Now, when I talk about testimonials, sometimes some people try to go over the board by doing too much or trying to put things that are not true. This is not the place where you are called to lie. This is the place where you are called to tell a real story, a genuine story. Remember, we'll keep hitting on authenticity, right? So this has to be authentic as well. We've talked about this in the past. Influencer endorsements. Influencer endorsements. Influencers are individuals with a strong online following or online presence. And they are very, very credible when you're talking about a particular niche or a particular category of business. It could be restaurant reviews. It could be people who are very good with maybe fashion, people who are good with real estate. We have different types of influencers for almost any kind of business category you can think of. So when people like that endorse your brand, their audience will see your brand as a trusted recommendation. This is where influencer endorsement really shines. So this is trusted individuals with large following. All right, recommending your brand to their followers. Influencers are also like word of mouth in the digital space, especially those ones who are powerful within a specific category or type of business. Using an influencer for your brand can humanize your brand, and it will extend its reach to that influencer's followers. We've seen, a skincare brand partnering with a beauty influencer on Instagram to demonstrate their product results. You know how they come in and they're standing in front of the camera with the product in their hand and telling you how long they've been using it and showing you on their faces the results. This is what we call influencer endorsements. This is where we end for today, but I want to quickly walk us through a quick way we can apply this strategy we just mentioned. Let's say we have a brand called Bootcamp and Co. By the way, this is a fictitious brand. This is not a real brand. I just came up with this. And we're talking about a digital branding strategy. Here's just a quick summary. First of all, we talked about content as the heart of branding, right? So Bootcamp and Co. will create engaging content that showcases its shoes. From the logo, you can tell that maybe Bootcamp and Co. is a brand associated with fashion to some extent, because they sell shoes. So they will create engaging content that showcases their shoes and how their shoe is not just all about wearing shoes. They'll try to present it in a way that our shoes are beyond fashion, highlighting things like comfort, durability, and lifestyle fit. This includes, Bootcamp and Co. showcasing their products, styling tips, and maybe behind the scene on how they design their shoes and the craftsmanship behind it. One thing people don't know is behind the scenes really gets people to get to feel how you come up with your ideas or how your brand works behind the scene. Very, very important. Another thing is storytelling. We talked about storytelling too. I would say the brand in this case will position itself as more than a shoe company by telling stories of movement, ambition, confidence, and all of those things. Another thing is content distribution. How do you think Bootcamp and Co. can distribute its content? Now, content distribution can be done through owned, earned, and paid media. For example, for the owned media, we have a website, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have email newsletters, as well as communities we've built, maybe on WhatsApp. We have earned media. For example, reviews, organic influencer shout-outs. Somebody that just bought our, maybe a shoe from our store, and the person snaps it and puts that picture on their WhatsApp story. WhatsApp status, not story. Another one is paid media. Our content can also be distributed using things like social media advertisements, influencer partnerships, or endorsements, as well as retargeting campaigns. Now, I'm using some kind of digital marketing lingo here, but what that simply means is somebody who has seen your brand but has not necessarily taken the steps that you want them to take, and you go back to them trying to convince them to take that step. That is what we call retargeting. And then we finally talked about building brand trust. So how can Bootcamp and Co. build brand trust? Transparency and authenticity will be the core of Bootcamp and Co.'s digital presence. This includes real customer testimonials, active responses to reviews. So even if somebody leaves a bad review on your business, don't get angry at it. You'd have to take that in the chin and try as much as you can to rectify the issue. Creating some kind of, storytelling in the way you represent your brand is another way of building trust. So in summary, Bootcamp and Co. will build a strong digital brand by putting content and storytelling at its core, ensuring that strategic distribution across multiple channels and fostering true transparency and authentic engagement with their customers will help them to build a strong brand presence. Now, thank you very much for listening to the second part of this month's webinar. I hope we've been able to learn a thing or two. I said while all this talk was going on, you could leave your messages in the chat, something you want me to clarify. So you can quickly leave that now, and we'll answer them before we let you go. While the messages are coming in, I'll quickly pass the baton to Ms. Sophia to give us her closing thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's been an informative section. I believe it's been a very wonderful moment, hearing so much and getting ourselves ready to become stronger, even in this digital space. In the digital space where so many things are ongoing, so many things are happening, just for us to make necessary adjustments. So many of us are already present online, but you just need to make some necessary adjustment, apply as much as you have learned. Remember, this program is coming to you from Jofia Academy, where we run tutorials for O-level exams, Nigerian exams, and foreign exams that covers JAMB, WAEC, NECO, GCE, as well as preparing students for foreign exams for tests in English, IELTS, TOEFL, GMAT, GRE, and CELP, and so many others. We also prepare for computer courses from zero computer to tech world. Get ready, and the year is winding down. Get ready and learn one skill to add to your CV. It is very, very important. We also assist students that have been out of school for a while. You can come in and do adult education. Obviously, we can learn physical or online. Anywhere you are in the world, we can hook up for any section, personalized section. Based on your schedule, we can make a flexible time with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, this program holds every last Friday and last Saturday of the month. See you again in October as you join us again. Thank you. And remember, this program is also on the YouTube. You can get the link and watch again and share with your friends. If there are areas you have questions, you're free to ask your relevant questions. Thank you, and God bless you.
All right, somebody left a question, and the question is, how do you protect originality of storytelling in branding? Oh, that's a good question. Now, whenever you put out a story, especially if it is branding, most of the time you don't want to protect the story you are telling, because you are telling that story for other people to tell other people. You understand? You are telling the story for other people to tell other people. True, that story may be represented or may be altered, and the thing is, it comes back to you, good or bad. Take a look at it. Somebody tells a good story about you, or let's say you put a story out there and the story is maybe misrepresented. You can always explain or handle it in a way that doesn't, incriminate or insult the person who is trying to share the story you've told. The reason why we do marketing is we are trying to get as many people as possible to see our brand. So that simply means we encourage that those stories we've told are shared to audiences. Like I said, you can't control it. So the only thing you can do is have your team, could be a social media team, could be a digital marketing team, could be whatever kind of a legal team, whatever. Because there are times when a product or a service is represented in media in a wrong light, and people go into it not knowing probably the terms and conditions and all of that. And this is why every single time you build a website, you must have your terms and conditions, your privacy policies. That is going to be your defense, because you can't control other people's narrative about your brand. The only thing you can do is making sure that that brand is represented in the right way. So originality of your storytelling cannot be protected, except something that's a documentary, and you want to maybe tell a particular story. And that's why most of these brands, they don't have, apart from the products that they have, most of the content they put on social media are not copyrighted. because you don't want to protect those kind of information. If you protect it too much, sometimes people that want to share about that product may not be able to share it in the right way. Let's take Coca-Cola as an example. There are people who have represented Coca-Cola as a brand that, loads people with sugar. That's a bad representation of that brand. But you've never seen Coca-Cola one day come up with, of course, there are times when it is represented in a bad light, and if it is very, very detrimental to the business, sometimes they take legal action. When it's about storytelling, you don't want to protect that original story we are trying to tell, because you want people to be able to share it. So if you protect it, then definitely people cannot share it willingly as they should, meaning it will not have the impact that you intend for it from the onset. So I hope that answers the question. I think we have another one. Kind regards. How can one get engaged with your computer graphics and website design? I'm interested in learning computer. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll share our contacts with you. If you can privately message us after the webinar is ended. Thank you so much for reaching out, Hannah. All right, I think that's all the question we have for today. I think that's all the question there is in the chat. All right, everyone, thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us. Again, we are going to be live with a different topic by the end of October. So do well to join us, and probably if you are here, you definitely learn a thing or two that you don't already know. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you all for the interactive questions you've asked so far. All right, we'll leave it here, and God bless you.